Today, if we look at the creator or attention economy, the philosophy of standing out is more relevant than ever before. Even when looking at personal branding itself, it has now largely become associated with people making lazy videos in front of a whiteboard, all trying to turn you into a client. Everyone is competing with everyone, and the moment something works, it gets copied, repeated, and overused until it loses all meaning. Even in terms of the content itself, what's different? Things changed fast, and maybe it's time to build the brand you wanted the right way. Let's start with personal branding. You see this picture? Now, my personal branding wasn't the real thing that got me on call. It was something else, and we're gonna mention it later. Now, when it comes to personal branding itself, really, we shouldn't try to build personal brands if we're being real, because that's just the byproduct of making videos or content in general, whatever platform you're on. The real focus should be on the product itself. As we said, the videos or the content. Now, personal branding is facing competition from every angle, and I don't really like the way it's going. And although a lot of people now understand that followers don't matter and the importance of authenticity, and we get to that in a minute, it sounds good. Overall, at least the overall awareness has improved. But the real problem now is that there is a lot of people making lazy videos thinking that they're providing value. Or for example, if we take a look at the editing style, a lot of people are copying the Imangaji editing style, or instead going to the opposite direction, making the laziest videos possible. At the end, both are the same version of the same thing, copying. It's like monkey see, monkey do type of logic. Even those trying to make something new or creative, it's just hard to come up with something original. Yes, in theory, you could look into a bunch of concepts and merge them to steal like an artist, but sometimes things do not click. And actually, that's most of the time. And while everyone else is shamelessly copying, you're still stuck on that design concept. I get it, nothing is completely original. And we'll get to some ideas about branding in minutes. But for now, we need to understand the problem. The worst thing is probably how lazy the content itself has become. There's no depth, the same ideas and solutions repeated over and over. However, people are craving more than knowledge right now. What consumers are looking for is wisdom, actual solutions to their problems. Knowledge is already everywhere. It has to be curated. And to expand on this, why don't we look at the consumer himself, the audience? One question I would ask is, out of what he learned, how much is actually applied? It's simple, valid question since we're making educational videos. And the answer is probably not much. And don't get me wrong, I still myself didn't apply a lot of stuff I learned. Learning is addictive, but that's not enough. I think the next successful wave of brands are going to be channels that are not only going to carry the right information for their audience, but actually helping them execute that information the right way. I'm gonna explain in a second. For example, how could people like Alex Hermosi and Iman Ghazi afford to tell their secrets? And that's because the whole info space is based on give away the secrets and sell the implementation. The implementation is simply the difference between knowing that you should send cold emails and knowing how to actually write them, when to send them, what to do after that, and everything involved. That's what you buy in a course, for example. Give your audience enough reason and why, and sell them the how and the tactics. And don't get me wrong, it's not as if I'm against any of that. I'm not. In fact, if the product is great, and why not? Not because we're now used to getting information for free. It's like, oh, why do I have to pay? No. Coming back to the previous point, I believe the difference between good and great value is going to be in how certain people are going to present their information in a way that is easily actionable and applicable, like systems, so that their audience actually, solves problems. And trust me, even with that, people will still buy. People do buy more of what they consume. Just look at your behavior. On top of that, can we just pause for a second and remember that we're not just providing solutions, we're also building a brand, a movement along the way, right? The very same thing whose meaning has been diluted purely for the sake of high profit margins. Personal brand.
The market shows up and says, this is what I'm interested in. Your job is not to just take notes and do it. Your job is to engage and help that person get to what they really seek. And when it turns into manipulation, that's when we're not actually getting them what they seek. We're just getting what we want and they lose.
Instead of making content for the audience, the content is made for the algorithms, stripped of artistic taste or value. And authenticity, it's not enough. Authenticity isn't just about pulling out your phone and publishing an unedited video. That is not really authenticity. Sure, that may capture an aspect of authenticity, but that is not definition. Following trends and aligning with the platform's goals. Sure, you can do that, and I think that's part of the game. Business is business, and keeping people's attention is crucial. But there has to be at least like an enjoyable part of this game, after all. And the problem is, when you try to be creative, you risk wasting endless hours only for your work to go unnoticed. And that's very hard on the ego that's attached to the work. So should we play this algorithm game or not? I believe it's essential. At the end, metrics like views, likes, and like comments are metrics of viewer satisfaction. They could be used to improve the content, make it better. And as a viewer, no one's going to dictate how you should watch certain videos or whether you should watch them at all. But is there a way to build our online brands like actual brands, like creatives and designers who have mastered the art of story branding?
If I put this candle in an all-white gallery space, it looks like a piece of art. If I put it on like in a garage, it looks like a piece of trash. I could either design the candle and spend a lot of time like telling you about the candle, or I could just design the room that it sits in.
Each one of us wants to share a vision with the world in a unique yet authentic way, while also turning this whole content creation thing into a machine that helps us build the business we want, serving the right people we care about. Think of it as creative business brand. We want to be the go-to authority. We care about attention and positioning if it leads to money, trust, and growth. If standing out doesn't solve a business problem, it's not urgent. Attention alone is fleeting, but when leveraged correctly, both become strategic assets that compound over time. In a world where most people look the same and the audience is looking for something fresh, even a small change could make a massive difference in why someone would listen to you and work with you instead of someone else. After all, that's just branding, but on a personal level. It's you, the brand. At the core of it, I'm sharing the idea here like that we're not here to compete. Of course we are, but it's more like we're here to dominate. Competing means fighting for scraps. Dominating means setting the standards and becoming the one people follow and copy. The thing is, this takes time, of course. And you'll be tempted seeing other people succeeding even though they saw it just after you. This is more like a 10x thinking. Most people compete over what they think are 2x easier goals. It's linear. What we're building here is something exponential. We're building here a compounding effect, one that may seem negligible at first, but once it starts snowballing, it creates an exponential impact. And if you don't want to adopt this way of 10x thinking, it's okay. Even the book I learned this from, 10x is easier than 2x. In a nutshell, when you aim for 10x, you give yourself a large margin to fail. That's simply because what you're trying to achieve is so big, you're bound to fail more along the way. And also, like, 10x isn't about like a specific outcome. It's a system, focusing on the system and the present rather than the goal. And if we be real with ourselves, why do we even strive to be different? Like, why bother? Maybe it's a deep-rooted need not to blend in, a craving for significance, or a desire to be recognized for something unique. Deep down, you know that there's something special about you or what you can do. But at the same time, you're tired of seeing the same recycled ideas over and over. And let's be honest, it's frustrating you as hell.
I think people are misunderstanding what marketing is. It's not hype. It's not hustle. It's not crushing it. It's not elbowing people out of the way. Marketing is the work of telling a true story that spreads. It's having a strategy where the wind is at your back. It's doing work that matters for people who care. If you're doing those things, you're probably not going wrong. But if you're chasing clicks, if you're chasing short-term interactions, it's a really hard slog.
So how do we make this happen? Before transitioning into brands, why don't we take an example from this YouTube industry? That's what I understand more. The Imagaji style as an example, every time a new trend pops up in his videos, it works for him. It feels smooth and sleek and every creamy word you could think of. However, when others replicate it, it doesn't have the same impact. It's not like it's not the style. Like it doesn't hit the same way. Bro, this doesn't look the same. Why? The answer is branding. That editing style isn't just cool animations, it's part of his brand. His videos carry a distinct cinematic style that is recognized. When others copy the same technique, they're simply copying the packaging. It moves from a signature branding to a normal generic editing trick that now a lot of people are using. It's not about copying the packaging. It's more about like the whole branding and story. People just see, what's in front of them. They don't look far beyond. That's the vibe Ima's brand wants to convey. It's the storytelling. It's not just about flashy editing, it's the emotion. Editing is just a tool. The way the story is told is what makes a difference. For example, remember when I mentioned that call in the beginning of the video? No, that's not Photoshop. I was in my grandma's house. That's, not the best way to hop on a call with one of the biggest personal brands. But the thing is, my understanding for marketing is what got the interest of a person to get me on a call with. It's more like my understanding of marketing and not just like understanding of YouTube. And I'm not like some big marketing genius, but I think it's more essential that we delve more into it. And that's like kind of what I'm doing with you guys. If we look, for example, at Nike, Nike isn't just a swoosh logo. It's what you think of Nike when you see a Nike shoe, what you feel, the vibe, the meaning behind it. That's branding. The crucial step now is deciding what vibe you want your personal brand be associated with, a set of words and emotions you want to be linked to. In other words, what do you want to become known for, both in content and style? If we, for example, look at Ali Abdul, what people think of is productivity, business, efficiency. On the other hand, if we look at Dan Ko, makes you think of writing, one-person business, maybe deep thinking. That's the first step. And I also want you to think about the vibe of the brand, more than just topics. What emotions you want your videos to convey? What do you want people to feel? You want to be cool, smart, dark. For example, for me, I want my brand to be like cinematic, things like that. And of course, it takes time to pull all this off. But hey, at least we should try.
The alternative is to make ideas worth talking about. What makes it worth talking about? It's remarkable, worth making a remark about. Doesn't mean a gimmick or a hype.
Then the next step I would suggest is looking objectively at what you could offer that is different from the market. What unfair advantage you have or something that you naturally possess that you may not even think it's an unfair advantage. Maybe it's a social status or a degree. Maybe you study neurobiology. I don't know, like it's your life. And if you don't think there's anything like really useful, maybe you're just one of the type of people who's like, oh, I made money with this method and I want to teach people how to also make money. Yeah, you're kind of late in a tough spot because you know that you're no different from other people who are rich. So yeah, I would suggest like overall looking at adjacent interests that could blend in well with the niche and the topics you discuss. Maybe you're interested into topics that surprisingly blend well, could make sense, but not a lot of people are exploiting them. Final step would be actually to experiment. Even like tweaking things by 3% or taking inspiration from similar industries, adapting it to create something new. Remember that it's not just about design, it's the whole story and vibe. It's the words you want to be associated with, what you want people to think of when they think about you and your brand. And like this is built across, timeline. Like you're not building a brand with one video or one post sliced to every social media platform. It's about a movement. And my mission is to help educational entrepreneurs disrupt education through providing them the right tools, knowledge, and most importantly, systems that will allow them to create transformative educational videos for their audience while building that brand and business along the way. Maybe it's big. If you're interested, check the first link in the description. And with that said, remember that it takes longer than you expect. But with systems, we could bridge the gap and achieve that faster. Keep creating meaningful content.
To me, marketing is about values. This is a very complicated world. It's a very noisy world. And we're not going to get a chance to get people to remember much about us. No company is. And so we have to be really clear on what we want them to know about us.